I really like Lethal Company, and I wouldn't be surprised if you've played or at least have seen gameplay of Lethal Company at all. There's also been plenty of content surrounding the game, whether it's the funny moments, to actual horror, to even discussion about the entities and hazards, which is what we're going to be doing today. Because over time, I've realized that whether it's a very unproblematic entity or a completely game-defining entity, someone is going to have a problem with it. For example, I wouldn't be surprised if you dislike dealing with the Bracken, but I would be surprised if you didn't like dealing with the Bunker Spider. Conversely, on what should be more threatening, I wouldn't be surprised if you said that the Hoarding Bug is underwhelming and should be buffed, though I would be very surprised and mildly concerned if you said the Man-Eater should be buffed. I could only imagine that a player might want something changed about at least one entity, so I thought, hey, let's both buff and nerf every single Lethal Company entity in the game. And yes, we are including traps. However, I didn't really like the idea of doing this by myself. So, joining me today is none other than minaxa.
Hey there, I am Minaxa. If you don't know me, I am a YouTuber who has made a few Lethal Company videos ranging from lore breakdown to criticism of the game overall. I have a little over 300 hours in the game, which is, I feel like, a fairly qualifying amount to participate in this discussion. I have thought a lot about the changes that I would make to things in Lethal Company over my time playing, and I think this discussion will be very interesting.
Now, with all of that in mind, let's make changes for every single entity in Lethal Company. I hope you enjoy. So, I have here with me minaxa. Say hello.
Hi.
Just give yourself a brief introduction of who you are. Just so
It's me. I'm Minaxa. It's me.
it sure is. It sure is. Okay, so what a great introduction. So what we're gonna do is we're going to discuss every single entity, whether it's gonna be the buff and the nerf, whichever one we want to start with first is like completely up to us. And yes, we are including hazards, and I think just to get them out of the way, we can start with the hazards, because
Sure, we can.
God, those things were hard to come up with changes for. And
I agree.
yeah, I guess I'll start it. So the first one I want to go over is landmines. I was
Okay.
not happy with like the choices that I had, because the only thing that I can think of is that sometimes when players activate landmines, they can run immediately behind a wall, and regardless of how close you are, it makes it so a player might survive it, and I don't think that was intentional game design. So I would change this to make it so it's fatal damage even if you immediately hide behind a wall, but again, not a big fan of this change.
That's actually really similar to what I said. So it wasn't specifically the thing where you can like kind of turn a corner and survive. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely not intended game design. I agree with that.
I agree.
But there's a more specific thing you can do where if you like run and just step on it and jump at the like exact precise moment, you can survive like barely.
Really?
If you have just like no weight on you, it's either that or you use like a shovel and you drop the shovel on the mine and then like drop it in the air and jump over, and that causes you to like barely survive.
Oh,
And in the
hell?
same vein, I did not think that was something that you would be able to do.
Yeah.
It's just kind of stupid. There's barely anyone that
I
can
agree.
even do that anyways. So basically the same thing, where I was like, just make it so that the explosion radius is a little bit wider so that you can't really cheese them as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so just increase the range of like the mine, basically, is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then as for a nerf, I just made it a simple one. Just make it so anything that steps off of the mine activates it.
Yeah, I've played with a mod before that lets enemies trip mines, and it's really funny because you'll just be like minding your business, and then you'll just hear an explosion, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
"Well,
It
I know
makes
how
for
that
it
happened."
makes for very funny content as well. It's just like, the fuck was that?
Oh, absolutely.
So
It would definitely be in the spirit of the game as well for a change like that to
yeah,
be made. Like, it's
because
definitely appropriate.
yeah, it's very very silly. So yeah.
I had an interesting idea for a change. It's kind of an idea that I've had in my head for a while that I thought would be kind of cool if it were in the game.
Yeah.
My idea was basically like, if you happen to have scrap on you and you step on a mine, but you don't step off of it, you can place the scrap down, and then you can step off of the mine, but the scrap has to stay on the mine. Like, basically, it's tripping a pressure plate, and it's keeping it deactivated. But then the moment that you take it off, it's just gonna blow up anyways. So basically, you're sacrificing whatever you're holding, in exchange for your life to continue playing the game.
I see.
So that I
see.
thought that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a life or death trade that you're making, huh? I see.
So you can decide to get rid of like the least valuable thing in your inventory, or if you only have tools in your inventory, then you just have to get rid of a tool and you'll have to buy another one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The next trap that I have are turrets. So I guess you can start with this one. So because like
Yeah, sure. We can like go every other. I wasn't really sure what to do with this. My idea for a I would really never. There's a lot of things on this list that I would really never buff.
Same, actually.
The turrets are kind of one of them because they're already really like punishing.
Yeah.
The buff that I made was kind of conditional in that you would decrease the fire rate of the turret while simultaneously increasing the damage that every bullet that actually hits you does. So there's kind of already a thing where it has kind of a wacky spread, especially the farther away from the turret that you are. So you can survive if you just get super lucky.
Yeah,
and it would basically just be like playing into that, just introducing more RNG. So it's kind of a buff, but it's also kind of like just RNG. So it's not like a straight up buff.
It sounds like a trade-off.
Per se.
It sounds like a trade-off.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a trade.
Okay.
It's like a conditional buff instead of just like, let's make this already really fucked thing even worse.
Yeah, let's make it even more broken because dude, I hate turrets so much. Oh my god, you have no idea how many times I've died to them. But so what I said for buffing turrets, realistically, I don't want to buff this at all because these things are insane. But I came up with hitting a turret with a melee weapon, like with a shovel. I want turrets hit by melee weapons to shoot bullets that would instantly kill you. Not that this kind of makes any like difference like at all, but it's like if for whatever reason the bullets do hit someone, because I think each hit from bullets deals like 50 hit points, like if you're close enough.
It's probably
something like that.
Something
I want that to be an instant kill because it's kind of punishing you for doing something really dumb.
For just doing something silly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly,
the game already does attempts to punish you for hitting the turrets as well, because it is a lot of people's intuition would be like, oh, maybe I can disable it if I punch it with the shovel. No. No.
Yeah, that's
not quite.
And then for nerfing it, so I'd make it so each hit, like hit in quotation marks, from like normal turrets kind of just deal 25 hit points of damage rather than 50 hit points regardless of distance. But again, I'm not a big fan of this change because I couldn't come up with anything better.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
So for my nerf, this is a very specific nerf based on things that have happened to me very many times. I would remove the turret's ability to spawn in a room that has an exit in it. So either the fire exit or the main entrance.
Oh,
because
yeah.
this is something that has happened to me quite a few times.
Yeah, I have seen several clips of people just entering the facility and then getting like face bombed by a turret like just there.
And sometimes it's in like a particularly bad spot. Another nerf that like you could do is just like off the top of my head, because I've had this happen a lot less often. It's probably only happened to me like twice.
Yeah.
But I have had instances where turrets have just completely blocked a doorway because they generated in just the right way
Oh, yeah.
for you to not be able to walk past them. And I think that's stupid.
Oh,
and there's
God,
no way
yeah.
that's intentional
No,
either. So that would be
that's
definitely something
absolutely
to
not
fix.
intentional. I think that's just a consequence of like the random generation.
But it's
So-
only ever happened to me like maybe twice.
yeah.
So it's definitely not common, but it's not something that should ever be able to happen to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I actually like your change a lot more. Oh god. Okay. Alright. And last but not least for the hazards, spike traps. Oh god. Okay. I hate these things very much, and I'm gonna explain why in the nerf section, but for buffing them, so for viewers at home, spike traps have two modes of activation. One of them is the timer mode, and then the other is the detection mode. And timer mode makes it so the spike trap has a random time interval of activating between 0.8 to 26.2 seconds. At least that's what I've read on the wiki. And I would reduce the interval to be from 0.8 seconds to 20 seconds rather than 26.2. It makes it so it has more of a chance to activate more often in timer mode, but it's absolutely nothing crazy, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that's entirely fair, and it's very similar to what I would have done to like nerf it as well. I basically just like I was gonna say for a spike trap nerf is literally just like to slightly increase the time it takes for every single spike trap to fall. Like no matter what kind of trap it is or what timer it is randomly assigned.
Yeah.
I basically just wanted the animation to take a little bit longer so that you had a little teeny bit more of a chance to not die.
Yeah.
If you just happened to be caught underneath.
I see.
Because that was basically the only change that I could think to make to it, because they are very like straightforward and there's really not much that you could do to change them.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, I don't know if I just listed a buff and you listed a nerf just now. Yeah. So if I wanted to nerf it, so originally with detection mode specifically, I wanted to make it so the spike trap would just slam down if it detects anything below it, not just players. But also, the more I've encountered detection mode traps, I've personally grown to dislike them a lot, especially if you weigh a ton from carrying so many items. I've heard there is a way to jump across the detection line below the trap, but for me, it is really difficult to get the correct timing, as you have to account for like how much you weigh and how far you go while jumping. And actually reading it out loud kind of makes it sound like a personal and maybe skill issue. So
I mean, there's like a line, like even if it is a skill issue, is it necessarily like a skill check that the game should be having people do? Like even if it is a skill issue, that's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily mean that it shouldn't be changed.
yeah, probably. But yeah, what you got, man?
So for the buff, yeah, I realized I did it in reverse.
Yeah.
That's my bad.
That's okay.
For the buff, I couldn't really think of a good buff. I kind of just thought about like having different aspects of the gameplay loop interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And although I would never do this, I said that you could maybe remove the light on the spike trap so that they're more dangerous in the complete dark, which would encourage you to carry some form of light on you, like a flashlight.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a very good reason why that light is there, just from a game design perspective, because that would frustrate people so much.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really think of any other way to I couldn't think of any way to change it.
Yeah,
that it wouldn't just be terrible.
I see, but hey, on the plus side, if for whatever reason that change was made in the game, then hey, flashlights would be more valuable, finally.
Yeah, the only time where I would say that flashlights are actually really good is in the mansions on maps where turrets are common, because sometimes they will be like in far corners where you can't see them, and they'll detect you when you're in the open, and you're just kind of screwed.
I see. Okay. I like that change actually. Kind of. It's very silly, but also, oh god. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the iffier ones. I have a lot of solid changes on here and a lot of iffier ones because it's not something I would want to change in the first place.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is really difficult to make changes for. And that's another thing for people watching. God, some of these we would rather not change because one, it's difficult, and two, some of these are just perfect the way they are. Speaking of things being perfect the way they are, the opposite goes for some of the indoor entities, which is what we will get started on now. So the first one, and we're going in alphabetical order here, is the barber. Now, I personally hate this thing a lot. These things trigger my anxiety way too much. But if I wanted to buff it for whatever reason, I would increase the hitbox of the scissors because the hitbox is actually not as accurate to the actual model of the scissors. It has like a negative disjoint on it. So
yeah, it is. I do remember that it is definitely very off. It's like kind of strange. If you end up having super close interactions with them, you kind of get a little confused as to like where you are even allowed to be. So that's a good change. I would definitely encourage that change.
Yeah. What do you got?
So for the buff, I came up with something kind of to call back to what I assumed was their original like game design, because they used to spawn and be in groups, but then that functionality was removed a bit after they were added because it didn't work correctly. And so rather than fixing it, Seekers was just like, no, they're just gonna spawn individually now. So my idea was to make barbers spawn in groups of 2 with the max on the map being 4, and then reinstating their original AI that allowed them to kind of form a line almost where they would follow a leader. Now in the game, the leader is the only one that spawns, and they're just individual. So I thought that just reinstating their original AI would be interesting. And it's definitely a buff because there would be more of them more quickly, and they would be just, in general, more of a threat. But it's not like a huge buff. It's more of just like kind of trying to bring them back to how they were originally supposed to be.
I got you. Okay. That's actually a really good change, too. Oh my god. So now, to nerf the barber, I would reduce the jump interval at the start of the day from 2.75 seconds to 3.5 seconds. But at the end of the day, they can have the same jump interval like as they usually do, because it's the end of the day. They become more dangerous.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I think it would be cool if the jump interval at the beginning of the day was like super slow, because then at the beginning of the day you can almost just like fuck around with them. Like they're not even like a threat. You just have fun with them. But then as the day progresses and things get a little more urgent and things get a little more fast, then it would be an interesting contrast to have an enemy that acts super differently. And they already kind of do act super differently between the beginning and end of the day, but this would be like to more of an extent, and I think that would be a good change.
Okay, alright. Now what do you got for a nerf?
So this is actually this is one of the ones where I didn't have any great ideas, and since this was the first one that I did on the list, it's in alphabetical order. This was the first, but I assigned this change to actually a few things, where basically I nerf their damage. Rather than being an instant kill, it just like crits you like a coil head. So if you get caught, like you're almost dead, but not quite. Like you're still in it. It gives you the chance to run away, but you're just gonna have no health for the rest of the day.
Okay, alright. So it's like how the coil heads put you at like 10 hit points like after they
if
hit
you
once.
happen to get hit and catch them before they hit you a second time, because their DPS is really high. They attack very quickly. But I've seen it happen a lot of times, and that's purposeful game design. It's there to reward people that were able to react just in time and give you like a crazy moment where rather than dying, you are horrified that you have almost died and you have now turned around to stare at this this doll
Yeah,
thing,
this
war
thing.
machine, whatever the hell the coil
Yeah.
head is supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Bro even made a theory on that, and if you want, go check that out. That's a good video. But yeah, I think that's the barber. Next up, we have what I call the creeper of Lethal Company, the Bracken.
The creeper of Lethal Company. That's appropriate.
This thing is very infamous for being one of the scariest and arguably most annoying entities, in my opinion. And quite frankly, I don't want to buff this thing, but I had to come up with something. So occasionally the Bracken will go into what people call standoff mode, where it stands still while players are staring at it. I would make it so its anger rises even quicker when it is in standoff. It punishes you for being distracted from finding a scrap, as well as, I think, dealing with the Bracken incorrectly. So that's what I would say.
So for my buff, I made it so that it would have been basically there's two modes that the Bracken operates in. It's either like seen or not seen. When it's not seen, it's basically constantly tracking you, and if you play with mods or if you watch as the ship guy, you can see that the dot on the monitor travels very diligently towards whatever it's targeting. And then the other mode, obviously, is once it's been seen, it actually attempts to path away from you, very, very far away from you, for like 20-ish seconds until it returns to that hunting mode. And my buff was basically just to decrease the time spent in that scared running away mode, so it spends more time of the day hunting you than it does running away from you.
Oh,
that was my change.
Actually, that's a really good change too. Hold up. Yeah, the Bracken would be even more annoying, like, with that change in mind.
You'd have to pay a bit more attention.
Yeah. It really keeps more players on their toes and stuff. Now, to nerf it, there's a lot you can bite off of. But ultimately, and I'm not even sure if I personally like this change at all, but I would make it so the Bracken cannot kill players during its scared phase, like you said, even if a player is in kill range. Mostly because it's the retreating phase. It's the phase where he's running away. You know?
I think that's really fair. That's a really good change. That's super fair.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that being in the game. That's the funny part is that my nerf is actually the polar opposite of your buff.
Oh boy.
Whereas
Let's
I
hear it.
would have decided to remove the chase feature entirely because I have seen it screw people over so bad when they like don't even know that they're looking at the Bracken, or someone else looks at the Bracken and then they chase like the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it's just like I've seen that be like almost a little too unfair. And if I were to have the option to nerf it, I'd just be like, just scrap that mechanic, bro. It's so like inconsistent in whether or not it even feels fair to deal with.
I see.
So my nerf was like I don't even dislike your buff, but my nerf was the complete opposite of your buff, which I thought was really amusing.
That is really funny. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, that's the Bracken. I feel like it would be slightly more balanced if we had like these changes like in place, but like that being said, like Zeekers is the final word to go with. So
He doesn't like making the game fair.
you could
It's
say
like literally the philosophy is to make the game not fair. Like I think that like
Yeah.
for certain I actually do believe that, which is fine. Like
that's fine. Yeah.
like it's kind of like thematically like relevant, since the whole point of you're kind of supposed to feel almost like a futility that there's like, because there is no winning condition, at least not yet. The game does not have a win condition. You're just playing as long as possible.
Yeah.
Which is unlike a lot of similar games where obviously you have like an endless mode option, but there is still like a final boss or an end goal of some kind.
Okay.
Anyways, a little bit of a tangent. We can move on to the next.
Yeah.
Next thing.
Well, this kind of is the opposite of moving on, because we are going to talk about the bunker spider, who kind of doesn't want us to move around at all. So,
No.
yeah. This thing is really underwhelming in my opinion. I think this thing absolutely needs a like big buff, like, to become more threatening. So I would boost the speed of the bunker spider when it is hunting a player. The issue with the spider is that killing it seems scary because it only takes 2 hits to kill a player. But in practice, just walking backwards and hitting it with a shovel is all you need to do to deal with it. The spider does slightly speed up when it's low on HP, but I still think that the spider should take a few more resources to properly deal with, because right now I think it's too easy to kill a spider.
Yeah, it's one of the easier things to kill for sure. And I feel like this definitely isn't intentional design. I think when you get to a point where like certain like high level players are keeping the spider around on purpose to fill up the power of the map so that more things can't spawn, I feel like you've done something wrong with your enemy.
Yeah.
Your enemy is not threatening enough if people are deciding to keep it around on purpose.
Yeah.
Unless of course that's like intentional, and then like if that is intentional design, I feel like that decision making that goes into doing that is still kind of cool. So you advocated for higher speed, and I think that that's totally valid because it is one of the easier things to kill, even though it does speed up.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a super straightforward change.
Let's hear it.
And make it just so like instead of the max spawn being 1, make it 2. There can be 2 spiders on the map.
Okay.
That's it. Super straightforward change. Just like if you get unlucky, there can be 2 spiders and it can be terrible. And then there'll definitely be a threat if there's 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think
it would encourage you to
I
kill
think that
them
would be
too. It would
fun,
encourage you
yeah.
to kill them.
Yeah.
At least one of them, just so that you can like get to anywhere, because they might just cut off like your avenues to the later part of the map.
Yeah. Speaking of cutting things off, so I had a really hard time coming up with a nerf to the bunker spider since, you know, they're really easy to deal with. But I would make it so the spider webs disappear upon walking through them completely.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. They are kind of a pain to deal with, especially if you don't have a shovel on you, which people often
You could be on like quota 1, and I mean, not that you would be able to kill it in the first place, but if for whatever reason you need to get somewhere and you're really scared of that spider, you can't just walk backwards like to get away from it, because like the spider webs are still gonna be there. I think walking through them completely should make them disappear.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. For my nerf, this is a feature that I've had friends like I've talked about this like potential mechanic with friends before, and there was even a mod that I'm not sure, it was a work in progress mod that kind of incorporated this this mechanic, whereas I thought that a nerf would be cool if it actively chased and killed hoarding bugs. So it would it would not necessarily be nerfing the spider, but it would be nerfing hoarding bugs. It would be a nerf in the sense that it makes the gameplay experience easier, because hoarding bugs are a pain in the ass, and they would actively chase them. So not only does this assist to the player, which is how it counts as a nerf, but it also just adds like depth to the game. And I've literally, like I said, there was a mod that I'm not sure if it ever like finished adding this mechanic. There was a mod that actually put this into the game, and I thought that was just like a really cool idea.
That is a very interesting idea. I think it would be cool as well to apply that to snare fleas as well. Yeah, but yeah,
because they're annoying.
I mean, yeah, they are really annoying. So, all right. Next up, going down the list, we have the butler. So, I want to hear what you have to say first, because
you want to start with me? Yeah, I don't like butlers. I don't like butlers at all. If I had to buff them, and I really did not want to, it probably took me like a good 5 minutes of just sitting and thinking, like something that wouldn't be too stupid while also being like at least a little creative. My buff was that the explosion that they kind of do, it's more of a pop that they do upon death, Currently, it doesn't really do any damage. Kind of just knocks you back.
Yeah.
And my idea was that if I wanted to buff it just a little bit, I'd be like, if you're standing too close to the butler when it explodes, it will actually damage you relatively severely. Like 30 to 40, maybe even 50 damage just for being way too close to the butler when it explodes.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of an explosion. Yeah. So.
Because currently, it kind of just knocks you back really far, and you can take fall damage if you're in an open room, or you could even like fall into a pit, depending on what tile you're in. But as of now, it kind of doesn't really do much to you.
Yeah, I like that change. I actually like that more than the buff that I had in my text pad, where I said, when the butler attacks, a murder music theme will start playing, and it is obviously quite distressing, but also I think hearing it will prompt the player to find other players as soon as possible if for whatever reason like someone else is inside the facility. And this is all before the butler even lands a hit on you. So I would make it that the murder theme does not become audible until the butler lands at least one hit on a player.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah,
no, that's cool. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you like it. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it. I actually like your change a lot more. But
that's right. I think that is really cool. Is you do have a good point that like if you hear like if it spots you from relatively far away. I mean, it takes about, I think it's 12 seconds once it does spot you the first time. But it does kind of give you more time to react to it actually deciding to care that you are alone. And I don't dislike that change at all. I think it's cool.
Okay, alright. Well, at least someone likes the change. Now, nerfing it. This one was a tough one to me as well.
This one was actually really easy for me.
Really? I want to hear yours first then.
This is a nerf that I have been saying that the butler should have since literally day one, and it's super straightforward. You literally just take their aggro timer of 12 seconds and double it. 24 seconds. That's it. Just make it take twice as long for them to actually start chasing you.
Oh, okay. I kind of had something like... It's not particularly similar, but more so it relates to the attack phase like stuff. But I do like the change. It kind of makes it so they seem even less kind of a threat to me. What was your philosophy on thinking like that?
I think butlers are actually a huge pain in the ass. I generally just don't like seeing them. The main counterplay that I think is really nice is to the fact that they take a decent amount of time to open doors. But even if butlers are not the hardest to deal with on paper, in that you just kind of have to like go find somebody, in order to play the game most effectively, you often aren't going to be near someone. So it kind of just feels dumb, in my opinion, that it's basically like just getting in the way of the optimal way to play the game in a way that I don't think is very engaging. So my idea was that it would take longer for that to actually matter once one actually like starts to beef with you.
Yeah.
And really one butler on their own is not a big deal, but you can have like
several.
A lot of them on a map. I think it's like 7 max spawn or something ridiculous, or like 5.
I actually want to check.
I think it might be like 7. It's a lot, and it's obviously mostly a problem on Dying, where they're way more common.
Yeah.
But another thing is that like you don't really want to kill them, because then it kind of just introduces another problem. So basically, the moment a butler has shown up, it's just a problem. They're a problem to deal with, and they're a problem to deal with after you kill them anyways. Obviously, you get rewarded with a knife, but that's not really like... Almost, I don't feel like it's enough of a reward, since it just introduces the hornets. And then you just have to deal with that for the rest of the damn day. I don't really get there seems to be like no like... Aside from obviously the counter of being next to someone, there's no like fair weakness to the butler, in my opinion, which is why I thought like a super like kind of harsh but also straightforward nerf was like warranted, in my opinion.
it's here where I can definitely tell this was from day one because you had so much to rant about with these motherfuckers.
No, I fucking hate butlers.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's kind of lessen that hate, because a nerf that I would present to the butler is I would just lower the speed of the butler when it is in its attack phase. Because
that is so fair.
in
Yeah,
my
that's
opinion,
fine.
it makes zero sense to me that the butler is as fast as it is with its balloon-like body filled with hornets.
It's a very strange creature.
Yeah.
I think that's a totally fair change though. Like I definitely would encourage just like it basically accomplishes a similar goal as my change, which is like what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
There's like I'm preventing the aggro from like happening for longer, and you're just making it so that when it does happen, it's not as big of a deal. So it is accomplishing the same goal.
Yeah. And I guess in a way, like, I'm also kind of like playing into the don't get caught red-handed like theme even more, because you know how the butler is like gonna try to get away from the kill site or something like that whenever it does commit a murder and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, moving on to another really annoying entity, the coil head.
Yeah.
Oh god, the coil head. I know that you do not like these things at all. Very much.
No, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan mainly of, I mean, this isn't even a change that I ended up making, but I'm honestly not a huge fan of mainly just how many of them are allowed to spawn. Like, the fact that you can get 5 of them at once is kind of insane.
With a power level of 1?
Of 1 each. Yeah,
What?
I don't know.
That's crazy, dude.
I feel like they should have been at least 2. If you're gonna have a max spawn of 5, then I get making it a low power level enemy. Just like that does make sense to me, but like at least 2, bro.
Just 2 is
1 is
fine, I see.
crazy.
So yeah, I'm guessing that's how you would want to nerf it.
No, I was saying that like that's not even a change that I made.
That's just in general.
So the nerf that I made, just because I wanted to come up with a bit more of an interesting nerf for this one, was to decrease their roaming speed so they're less likely to find you in the first place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because what they do, so for those who don't know, they're in a roaming phase when they first spawn in. They try and cover the entirety of a room before moving on to another one. That's I would say a reasonable change, because it takes slightly longer for them to.
Yeah, then
to
it
accomplish
basically
their goal.
nerfs their ability to be as effective on larger maps, which is kind of when you would
Yeah.
least want to deal with them.
Yeah.
Because you have to travel so much more distance, and if you find them fast on a large map, it just bottlenecks your entire day.
Yeah, that really sucks. Okay, now I think I have an interesting nerf, and I'm kind of happy with this one. So if you have a direct line of sight to the coil head's shins for some reason, they will stop moving. I think they should also stop moving when you stare at the coil head's head.
Yeah, I mean that makes intuitive sense. I'm
Yeah.
really not sure why the detection is like by their feet.
It's really strange because you have to look at a really compromising area of the coil head if you want them to stop moving.
And it kind of also results in a bit of confusion, since a lot of people will see it move when they don't really have any reason to think that they messed up. So that's just like not even really good game design at that point, if people are not even realizing what they're doing wrong when they think they know how the enemy works.
Yeah,
That kind of
yeah.
just sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. Okay, now for buffing it.
Oh boy.
So, I think it's kind of weird to buff the coil head, especially with this new mechanic that they were given to go into cooldown after chasing someone for a period of time. But ultimately, and it's funny that we talk about like how the coil head like kills people like doing 90 hit points of damage first and then killing them. I would just make it so the coil head attacking you is just an instant kill, just a simple one. Because most people think that the coil head insta kills people anyway. But I'm also completely open to a different reasonable buff.
I think if you were to do that, you'd have to make them travel not quite as quickly to make it more reasonable to react to.
Yeah.
But in that instance, then I would not disagree with that change.
I see.
So for their buff, I basically took their number one counterplay, and I just destroyed it. So the buff was having the time it takes for them to open doors, which was previously 16.6 seconds and down to like 8.3 seconds.
Oh, you
because
have the time. Okay.
that is literally like, it is definitely the number one counterplay, and it has been since before the new mechanic was added.
Yep, I agree, actually.
And I do think that even though an enemy that strong does need some strong counterplay to balance it, 16 seconds is kind of crazy.
It is a little long, I agree.
Like, you can kind of just like walk away and it'll lose you at that point. Like 16 seconds is crazy. Like, I think 8 seconds is still pretty good. So I think that's actually a reasonable buff.
Yeah. You know, I actually I think your buff is probably better, I'm not gonna lie. Because like my change was very, I would say, overkill, no pun intended, but yeah, that's how we would change.
It's not necessarily. It's not necessarily overkill. I feel like it just needs to be one of those conditional changes where, like, they definitely would have to travel less, or you could just have like the sound that plays when they are chasing you, like their feet stomping on the ground. You could have that play sooner, just to like counter like the natural limit of like human reaction time. I think especially since sense. Like it is a pretty casual game, so a lot of people are just gonna have much slower reaction time than like a real gamer would. Yeah. So you just gotta like account for the fact that might be unfair to like a good 90% of the people playing the game.
Yeah, and it also like punishes like speedrunners, solo speedrunners even more if for whatever reason we went with that insta kill buff. Yeah,
honestly, in a solo speedrun, if you find a coil head, like if you're finding one in the first place, that's already like, it already kind of just sucks. Like ideally you just don't want to find one in the first place. Like most of the time you just don't want that to happen.
Yeah, you can just see it and just like, all right, I'm done for the day, no more. Next up we have the Ghost Girl.
I've got some thoughts about the Ghost Girl.
I have some thoughts about it as well, because well, let's start with the nerf first. So what I would do, because the Ghost Girl is one of the more misunderstood entities in the game, and I think providing somewhat of a tutorial on how to deal with it would be nice. So even though it doesn't entirely make sense lore-wise, give it a bestiary entry. That's all I would say.
Yeah, that's really fair. Like, even if it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bestiary entry in the traditional sense. Like, a lot of the bestiary entries are a bit different. It could be one that was written specifically by, like, you know, the crew that was that is kind of the setting for the lore, the crew that came before you at some point. It could be a log that they wrote for the first time on their own and added to the bestiary. But literally just like, all you gotta do is give some kind of direction to not look at her. That's all you really have to do.
Because the only other entity, as far as I know, that doesn't have a bestiary entry is the Masked, I believe. But the difference, I think, with the Masked and the Ghost Girl is that it's very obvious what the on what the Masked is trying to do, at least in my opinion. Because
it's kind of just intuitive. Just based on the creature design, like, you can see it looks like you, but it's not like you, and it's trying to get you, and that's all you really need to know.
It kind of
they're also really slow.
I think that is like what explains like why some people might call it the zombie, even though it's a mask. So Alright, what you got for our nerf, though?
So mine was less creative, and it was kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where I applied this to multiple enemies, where it's a bit more interesting than the previous instance, but I was like, just do 90 damage instead of instantly killing when it actually, like, if it reaches you. And then once it has done that, it will stop haunting you and move on to the next player.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So basically, if you could even like, basically it gives you the choice. If you want to get rid of it on purpose, it'll cost all of your health basically, but you won't die. You could purposely make it go to someone else if you really want to.
I see. Yeah, that's an interesting change, I gotta say. And I guess it'll make someone even more like paranoid, because just like I saw this. Why does no one else see it? And then someone else might say it's like, oh wait, I see it too. Wait, I don't see it.
And if you can't tell, my philosophy for game design is that I absolutely believe in second chances, and I don't like things feeling unfair. I usually try to avoid that, so that was kind of like my idea behind a lot of these changes.
I got you. Okay, now buffing the ghost girl. This is another one where I wasn't really happy with the change that I made, but I couldn't really come up with anything much better. I think staring at the ghost girl for a prolonged period of time should aggro the ghost girl, even before like the third time you stare at the girl.
So just like basically skip all of the other phases. If you stare for too long originally, she'll just go straight to chasing you.
Yeah. But again,
that's not bad.
Yeah, but that said, I'm not really happy with that change, because it kind of destroys the whole like bestiary entry like nerf that I gave it, because it would it would just completely change how like the ghost girl like behaves and stuff. So.
I don't think it would be that bad. It's just because like when it comes to like designing an enemy in a video game, like I think there are ways to definitely do your change well, and there would have to be some sort of intuitive indicator that the reason why you are being punished is because you stared for too long. Like honestly, really similar thing that I probably would apply to that change were it to exist in the game is the way that like I don't know if you've played Repo. It's like the really tall, lanky, like black enemy.
I haven't played Repo yet, so I gotta try it at some point or another.
Yeah, there's like there's an enemy that makes like baby noises, and it spawns just like abruptly, like it appears in the middle, like right next to you. And if you stare at it for too long, your screen almost like focuses, like a black vignette on the corners gradually shows up, and it starts to like sprout arms from near its like the top of its torso. So the whole point of that enemy is that you cannot look at it for too long. And it specifically goes out of its way to have a very well designed indicator of gradually you have been looking at this enemy for too long, you need to stop looking at that enemy.
I see.
If the ghost girl had something like that, then your change would actually be fantastic. I feel like it would fit right at home in the game. You just would need to actually be able to communicate it, and that's the biggest problem that you addressed in your nerf as well, is that there is no proper communication for the mechanics of the ghost girl, which is really stupid considering she's one of the most complex enemies in the entire game. So that just makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly how it is, though.
Yeah. I would just as a side note, I hate baby noises, so I would fucking hate that Repo enemy you just described.
There's also a literal baby that just picks up items and throws them.
Oh god, that's not much better. Okay. All right. Well, let's distract ourselves from Repo and then go back to what you would propose for a buff for the ghost girl.
A very specific buff for the ghost girl. I do not like that you can go in the ship and stand on top of a piece of furniture and completely cheese her. I think that's stupid as fuck. So I would literally just remove that functionality. I would extend her hitbox upwards so that she kills you anyways, even if you're standing on furniture.
Yeah.
It's dumb that you can. It's so easy. It's so easy. It shouldn't be that easy to completely negate, like. I think that's dumb. So I would just get rid of that. That's it.
I actually did not even know you could do that in the first place. It's kind of
once you know, it is extremely easy to just like never die to her again.
Yeah,
you just have to get back to the ship fast enough.
It's kind of like the giant sapsucker, which by the way we're not going to be discussing in this video because it's a super new entity right now.
I haven't even played with it.
I mean, but you were. I remember you talked to me about how you can kind of cheese it. By just standing on like the fire exit or something like that, or
I'm not sure if that was removed or not. I think there were a few like sub patches,
okay.
But I don't know, because I haven't really engaged with the enemy even once. I have not played that update yet.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But I just remember like a discussion that we kind of had about it, where that was a thing you could do. We don't know if you can do it now, but it's kind of stupid that you could do that. So I think, yeah, doing that for the Ghost Girl, like increasing its hitbox detection like vertically, yeah, that makes sense. So
That's it. That's all I would do.
all right, next up, the hoarding bug. I had really simple buffs and nerfs because I think hoarding bugs are fine the way they are, at least in my opinion. So the way I would buff the hoarding bug, I would set its power level from 1 to 0.5, because we've seen it happen with the baboon hawk, I'm pretty sure. So I would say, hey, why not do it with the hoarding bug as well?
You want to know what's really funny? It's the exact change that I made.
Oh, that's really...
I basically said reduce power level to 0.5 and also mimic the baboon hawk behavior, having them spawn in pairs to compensate for that.
Okay.
Baboon hawks, the reason why that change was made is because they used to spawn individually, and now baboon hawks spawn in pairs, so they're one power level spawning at a time, but it's two separate entities, if that makes sense.
I see. I got you.
But basically, I was just like, just transfer that behavior and have it also apply to hoarding bugs, and I think that'd be good. Like, we came up with the same idea because it's
Okay.
a cool idea.
Yeah. So that's an interesting buff. You know what? We could just go with that. Honestly.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's like, I actually think it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So now to nerf it, I would slightly reduce its damage output from 30 hit points to 25 hit points at a time. It doesn't really make as much of a difference as one might think, because if you run away from like an entity like for long enough, I think you regenerate enough to...
You regenerate up to 20.
Yeah, I was gonna say you regenerate up to 20. But even so, I think you can still survive a hit.
Yeah, the game has like a sort of last chance mechanic where I think if you take a certain amount of damage, then you will survive on 1 HP or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't recall exactly. It's kind of an obscure thing to know the technical exact knowledge of, but I recall something of that nature existing within the game.
Yeah. So again, realistically, this shouldn't make too much of a difference, but it does make a slight difference. Yeah. All right.
So my nerf was similar, but rather than decreasing their damage, I would decrease the amount of damage you have to do to kill them. So HP from 3 to 2. 2 shovel hits instead of 3. Make them super easy to deal with, but the first shovel hit is free, so you're like basically exponentially more likely to get away with killing one without taking damage, because that third hit is usually the one where you might mess up once and then hit it on the... If you're kind of like hiding the enemy, you might mess up and then hit it on its way back. Basically just like making it a little bit easier to deal with, since there's not really supposed to be anything more than a nuisance.
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes they can be a lot more annoying than just being a nuisance, so having them be easier to dispatch, I think, would make for a good change.
I actually really like that change. All right. Okay, next up is the... How do you even pronounce this? The Hygrodere? The Hygrodere? The slime.
I don't know. Everyone just calls them slime.
Okay, so for a buff, you can actually stand on the outer area of the slime's model, and you can still avoid taking damage. I think it's around like the absolute middle area of the slime itself, where you actually start taking damage and stuff.
Yeah, it just has like a very forgiving hitbox, basically.
So I would change it to where simply like walking even into like its outer portions would still damage a player.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Especially since they pose so little of a threat most of the time.
I
think their hitbox definitely still should not envelop like the entirety of the model.
Oh no, yeah.
But it should be less forgiving than the outer 30%'s just good.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of where it's at right now.
Yeah, I think doesn't make that much sense that you can like stand in the model and not take damage.
I feel like an alternative like change could be that the damage that you take could become larger the closer to the center that you are.
I was gonna say, yeah, the lesser in the middle you are, I think the less damage you should take.
No, I think that's a good idea. All right, so for the buff, I thought it would be interesting if their AI was improved so that rather than just like coming to a full and complete stop when you just like encounter any door, that they would actually attempt to find ways around closed doors if they exist. So if there is an alternate path, it'll continue to slowly chase you while taking that alternate path. Basically, it should always try to get to you.
Yeah, it should always try to pathfind, like, to, like, a
If
player,
possible.
If possible, yeah. I don't know if I would personally agree with that, because it kind of introduces a cheese method where you could close a door and then the slime would leave, and then you can just open the door again, and by the time you actually open it, the slime is not as big of a threat because you could just walk past it. At least that's how I see it. That's how I see it, but I don't know.
I feel like that could definitely happen in most instances where it is actively chasing you, because it is always really trying to slowly get to you. Yeah. There is probably a reason why he decided that it should just get stuck at a door.
Yeah, I see. Okay, now to nerf it. I have a very simple change. Please make it so it doesn't camp the main entrance or something like that. That is
that's the same thing. Same thing that I said.
Okay, because that is such an annoying thing to deal with.
And it's not intentional either. I think it's just a byproduct of the way that their pathing works. Like, once they see a player, they basically, like, I think they chase their last known position. I think it's actually the same reason why they stop at doors. I think it's the same reason.
Yeah. Because that's so annoying. And it sucks because, like, I think if there's no players in the facility, it just stops in place or something.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Make it so it doesn't camp the main entrance. That's all. That's all that we want. Okay, next up, the Jester.
This is the first time that I have two separate options for a buff.
Oh shit, okay, alright. You know what? Let's hear them both then.
Alright, option 1. Remove Jester trapping entirely. This is basically a sweat-only thing, and I think that Seekers may have attempted to do this anyways, but I think the ability to completely, like, obviously not intended game design, completely negate the threat of an enemy is dumb. I do think that the Jesters should have probably a little bit more counterplay if, like, you can't permanently deal with them, but it was never intentional for you to be able to permanently deal with them in the first place. Yeah. And then option number 2, which is barely even a buff, but I thought that it would just be cool, is to make it so that Jesters, like, bust through doors instantly, like Thumpers do if they're traveling fast enough. So when they're chasing players, they'll just like, they'll do that same, like, the boom sound that is made where they just bust straight through the door rather than being even momentarily stopped by it. That's just not gonna happen. They'll just go straight through.
Yeah, that's a scary ass fuck change. For buffing the Jester, so I've seen some people cheese the Jester by standing on a railing, and the Jester just wouldn't kill them because the player has a height advantage. So I would make it so the skull on the top of the box has a detection hitbox so that it kills players that might still have a height advantage. Because...
Yeah, I remember, because that was like the example change that you put in there, and I actually do think it's a really good change.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely, like, if the Jester has like a whole ass fucking like skull that comes out of the box, it should be able to get you. This only makes sense.
Yeah. Because that thing's fucking huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
First off. But second off, the fact that it doesn't have a hitbox and rather just has the animation of you getting chomped by it is so weird to me. It makes so little intuitive sense. So, yeah, just make it so the skull actually has some gameplay implication.
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
All right, now for the nerf. I'm gonna get mine out of the way just because I think you've already seen mine, but yeah, so I've seen clips where people get stuck at a dead end and then the jester blocks the only way out. So I would make it so the collision hitbox is smaller. The jester's collision hitbox is smaller so players can escape through a doorway and not end up in that very annoying, inevitable death situation.
Yeah, no, that's super fair. I think that would be a good change.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another, not a day one nerf because the jester's like an OG enemy, but this is a day one change that I wanted ever since the change happened. So in version 50, the wind time for the jester was completely destroyed. So it would start winding way faster than it used to. And I had no idea why that was a change that Zeekers perceived as necessary at any point. No one would ever have asked for a jester buff, but that's exactly what happened in V50. So my only change would be to revert this to its value in version 49, which was on average 33.5 seconds instead of the current 17 on average. It basically just it adds about an extra 40% increase in what you are allowed to.
I can see it. I can see
less
it.
Than a double.
That makes sense. Yeah, because the jester is, first off, it's invincible. You can't kill this thing. Second off, it's so big of a threat, and having an even shorter timer for it makes it just makes the game needlessly harder. That's
I just don't think, like, for something that is technically a threat that will exist for basically the rest of the day, as soon as you find it, it should be an imminent threat a lot less often. And by reverting the wind time, you accomplish that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good change, I would say. I think the way that the jester is right now is kind of ridiculous with the fact that it activates so quick.
Because like I'm just like thinking about it a little more. The first few times even you find a jester while playing Lethal Company, like it's scary, it's funny, and then like and as in my opinion, a lot of the enemies feel like after you play the game for enough time, finding them just feels like a chore because they are so geared towards just completely ruining you within an instant.
Yeah.
And like, the game is designed around counterplay being very difficult, which is not inherently bad, but like I said earlier, that feeling of unfairness is not one that I enjoy while playing games, which is a shame, because I think a lot of Lethal Company's gameplay is fantastically designed. So when some of it just like sours the experience, it just kind of makes me feel sad. Because then it makes me not want to play a game that I like a lot of parts about. And I mean, that I made a whole video about like the things that I would change about the game because there's so many aspects that kind of sour it for me.
Yeah, I agree. Because, you might enjoy, like, 90% of the game, and then that 10% is gonna come in and ruin your day, and it's just like, this is not fun for me. I don't want to play this right now.
This is why when, I know you haven't played it, but when Repo came along, it was like a hopeful light in the darkness. It's like a Lethal Company-esque game that is more fair and is designed around more intentional counterplay and has like more like long-term progression. It is so fun, and it's actually playable in solo, whereas Lethal Company is almost unplayable in solo unless you feel like putting in an exorbitant amount of time into getting really, really good at the game, or just playing so much that you get a good run because you played so much.
Yeah.
And I think that just sucks. Whereas with Repo, as long as you learn the basics of the game, you can pick it up as a solo player, and you're gonna have fun. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. Would recommend to like anyone that likes that sort of game. I would recommend it to.
Yeah. All right. I definitely gotta try Repo at some point or another. Okay. The next entity, we have the Man-Eater. Now,
Fucking hate this guy.
I hate this
So
thing too,
bad.
don't worry, you're not alone. Okay, so for the buff, it's funny that you talked about your buff for, well, one of your buffs for the Jester, because I said if the adult Man-Eater is in its attack phase and it is charging a player, make it so if it hits a door, it busts the door open similarly to the Thumper.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense.
Really funny that I said that, like, after you present your Jester change.
Well, it's just weird because it's a really like cool. It's a cool mechanic that was added to the Thumper, and the fact that nothing else can do it is just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, why can't anything else do that? It's so weird.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me read it word for word.
All right.
I said, I guess you can make it more likely to eat scrap. I don't know. This asshole is already overtuned as fuck. I read that word for word. I literally could not come up with a sufficient buff because I think it is already so overtuned.
Yeah, this thing's kind of insane, like, as well. Oh my god. Oh, dude.
It's not even as much that it's like super difficult to like avoid dying to. It's the amount of like maintenance and like dedicated time you have to put into making it not a problem that's just so annoying. Like,
yeah.
it just I don't know, man. There had to have been a better way to implement. Like, I don't even dislike the idea of the enemy. There just had to have been a better way to implement it.
Yeah. Okay, now to nerf the Man-Eater. I'm sure you have a lot that you could choose from, but I ultimately went with this. So while the adult Man-Eater has 5 hit points that you can deal with any source of damage, whether it's the knife or a melee weapon like the shovel, I argue that the shotgun should still deal damage equal to half of its health points. So like 2.5.
At least half.
Yeah.
There's no. This was one. So I actually have 3 separate proposed
Oh my
nerfs. for
god.
this
Okay,
guy.
let's hear them all.
But that was kind of one of them where I was like, there is no way that it was intentional that 5 of any damage source is required. Not just 5 shovel hits, 5 mines, 5 shotgun blasts, and 5 shovel hits are all treated equally in the mind of the Man-Eater. And that just
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. And I swore that was not intentional during the like beta for the update. I was like, no way, that's intentional. It's gonna be changed.
I wouldn't think that.
And it was never changed. So I'm like, was it meant to be that way?
If
Guys,
so,
there's no
if
way.
so, then I think that needs to be changed like immediately.
So what I said is that shotguns and mines should just kill it instantly rather than taking 5
Oh,
hits.
okay. All right, yeah.
But
Okay.
I do think that your change is also fair. Like, I don't mind it being 2 instead. It's not a huge difference. It just makes it so that I think 2 is good just for shotgun balancing, because then you have to, the whole shotgun's worth of bullets needs to be expended for one single enemy.
Yeah.
So you need to decide, do you want to do that? And you also need to have 2 bullets already loaded in to sufficiently and quickly deal with it, or you might just die trying. So I
Yeah.
actually kind of prefer your 2 shots idea. But that was only my first nerf option.
Oh no.
Um,
Let's hear it.
There is a second, so I actually looked into the specifics on how it works a bit in more detail because I wasn't completely informed.
Yep.
It actually has a functionality to path towards it. It tries to find players before it has actually seen them. It actively attempts to find you so that it can ruin your fucking day. So my idea was just like, make it so that it doesn't do that. I think it shouldn't be able to pursue players until it has found a player. And then once it has found a player even once, then once the players vanish, it should get again that ability to search for players even when it can't see them.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair. But the fact that it tries to find you before it even has any reason to know where you are is wild, considering how inconvenient it is. I think that's a crazy mechanic.
I agree, actually. And it's especially counterintuitive when it tries to lure you in with its crying as well. But that's only your second proposed nerf.
Yeah, the third nerf is super simple and similar to a lot of the other things that I said. We basically just double the timer that determines when they transform. I think currently it's 14 seconds, and obviously this timer's only running down when it's crying.
Yeah.
But basically, I would just make that take way longer. And I think that because 14 seconds is really not a long time. I know it's not constantly crying, but it's so easy for it to get upset that I think 14 seconds is just not quite enough.
Yeah, I have heard that the man-eater's timer, like when it's an infant, like decreases slower if it hasn't found a player yet. But
that is true.
I think even so, it's still kind of nuts that the man-eater is as threatening as it is, and it takes so little time for it to transform anyway.
Not to mention, it has like a 70% increase in spawn rate if it's mineshaft. Like, Seekers, what were you thinking, bro? You pissed me off.
I mean, intuitively, I think it makes sense, but even so, I've found man-eaters.
It makes sense, but sometimes you need to choose gameplay integrity over making sense.
Yeah.
That is one of those instances.
Isn't there like a nest node where it like stays put at sometimes, like in the
once it's
mineshaft?
actually an adult, it makes like a nest, and the nest has an area where it can detect where you are. Like the mechanics are really interesting once it actually is in the adult form, but it's all like kind of all for naught when it can just kill you instantly, and you no longer are encouraged to interact with these really detailed mechanics because you're dead. So it doesn't matter.
It's annoying.
It doesn't matter how detailed
really
the mechanics
annoying.
are. You're just dead.
Yeah.
So if it also was just like not able to kill you quite as quickly, then you would have more reason to actually learn the very, very detailed mechanics behind how it works in its adult form, because it's actually pretty cool. But again, it doesn't matter because most of the time you're just dead, and you can't interact with something if you're dead because you're just spectating. You're dead.
Yeah, man, that was a very heated discussion about one of the spookiest enemies in this game. So let's move on to, you could argue, is still kind of a man-eater, the mask. So the way I would buff it is that, okay, so sometimes on the radar camera, you can see that when a mask takes over someone, like takes over a different player, they spin around on the camera. And while I think that is like interesting that they do that, I also think that if you didn't communicate to people that they should spin, like if they're in trouble or in need of teleporting, I feel like you would know that that's a mask there.
It's like an instant tell.
Yeah, it's a tell there. And especially if you have a walkie and you're trying to talk to like someone, like that specific player, and they have a walkie, and I don't know, it's a very specific buff like that I'm making, but make it so they don't spin around on the radar camera. I think it makes it harder to see if a crewmate died on camera. I mean, you have to absolutely like see that they died, that way you know. But if you didn't see it and you're trying to talk to them and they aren't replying, I think it would be harder to tell that that's not a crewmate. So, yeah, that's my proposed change. It's very specific, but I kind of like it.
No, I do like it. What did I say? So I actually, on my document, I listed this as option 1, and I think I forgot to go back and make an option 2. So I actually only have one option. So I'm just going to pretend like I intended to do that. This was a very, very specific buff that I think would be super interesting. So I'm not sure if you know this, because I've never seen this mechanic actually play out in any game or run that I've ever had. But they have a mechanic where I think it's like if no one is outside, or I don't know if no one is outside, or if like they roam outside and then no one's in the ship, they actually hide in the ship. Like they'll attempt to hide behind furniture and wait for people to come back. But I've never seen that happen to me before.
Yeah, I think it's I think it might be because the mast like always try to detect whether a player is inside the facility,
Mm.
and if they don't detect that, then they go outside, or unless they're actively chasing a player. Which I think also, like, with the way that they're designed, like right now, it makes it so they hide on the ship even less.
Yeah, but my idea was to integrate that mechanic into the actual like tiles of the interior. Make it so that there are places where they may hide and attempt to
Oh.
catch you off guard. But I would, to make this not completely stupid, I would add like a specific unique grace period where they briefly cannot like immediately lock you into an animation and just like screw you over, because like obviously if they're hiding, a lot of people that have never interacted with that mechanic before are not going to know that that's a thing that they can do. So
Yeah.
I basically I would have like a unique case, I guess iframes or grace period where they cannot get you, basically just long enough for them to scare you and give you time to react to the fact that you need to not be super close to them.
Yeah. Okay. I can see it. Okay, now to nerf the mast. I feel like there is a whole treasure trove, kind of what you could choose. But ultimately, I said to just increase the length of the kill animation when a masked kills a player. Or rather, grabs a player.
Yeah, because it gives other people time to save you if they're around.
Yeah.
There is a change that another change from a mod that I've played with, but also a change that I've just kind of thought should be in the game.
Yeah.
And it would be a nerf in the sense that killing them would add extra reward. And I just think that their masks should drop as scrap when you kill them. So not only
Oh.
do you get the reward of getting rid of an enemy, but you also grab something worth like 30 to 50 that you can just keep as almost like a trophy of your
I see.
triumph.
I see.
And there's a mod that does that I've played with before, and it's really fun to be able to like kill an enemy and actually get money out of it,
I
aside from like, you know, the
see.
butler and the nutcracker.
Yeah, I feel like you could go one step further with that idea and like make it so if you kill a player who was masked, they drop all their items that they were holding before. But I feel like again,
Oh yeah,
that's kind of
that'd
interesting.
be nice.
I don't know if unfair is the word that I want to use, but it makes the masked a very valuable enemy to kill if you really need to get more money, and especially like, hey,
Yeah.
a player died and they were holding a lot of stuff.
And the nutcrackers are already like that, but like they
Yeah.
are a lot harder to kill. The masks are actually really easy to kill.
Yeah.
Probably one of, like, once you get the hang of it, probably one of the easiest things in the game to kill.
Because like, I actually like introduced the mechanic to one of my best friends, where if you are in the grab animation, you can just hit the masked and they'll the animation will just be interrupted, and I think that's like, yeah, I don't know, something like that. But yeah, speaking of the Nutcracker, let's move on to the Nutcracker. Really silly name, first off. But second off, if I were to buff it, realistically, I don't want to, but
Yeah.
if I wanted to buff it, I would make it so Easter eggs do not instantly kill the Nutcracker.
Interesting. I guess the whole idea is that the eggs have a random chance to explode, but if you just try over and over again, you're probably just gonna do it.
Yeah. Alright, how would you buff the Cracker of Nuts?
So, thankfully, I had a very specific buff in mind, because there is an exploit you can do where while you are attacking them, you are actually able to jump through them, which kind of puts them off of where you are and where they are aiming. Basically, similar change that I made earlier, just raising their hitbox so that you can't jump through them, because you can literally just jump through them because the hitbox is at their legs.
Their legs,
And
yeah.
you are able to jump over that, and I think that's dumb. You can go through the model of the enemy and not die.
Yeah, that's really silly.
Or
And
at
not in
least
the
you should
funny
take
way.
damage, because I know a lot. Because every other thing that they do is like an instant kill, unless you get really lucky with shotgun spread.
Yeah.
From far away, and then you might survive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think your change makes far more sense because it's a physical being. You should not be able to like pass through it like a ghost. So, nerfing the Nutcracker. Okay, so originally I thought of making it so kicking a player will not automatically put the Nutcracker into its aggressive state, as I have seen that before, and I think that's a little silly that it can do that in the first place. But instead, I thought of just drop the gun upon death. Because sometimes when the Nutcracker dies and phases into a wall, it will still be holding the gun and make it so it's irretrievable. It's not intentional, obviously, to do that. But the fact that it can happen is silly, and again, not in a funny way.
Yeah, no, I do think that is really stupid. What did I say for my nerf? Okay, so for my nerf, I wanted to remove. This is actually my skill issue. This is my skill check nerf.
Oh.
I wanted to just remove their ability to aim while moving because I think it's really fucking stupid. And I also don't even think that it's an ability that they originally had. I think it was added to try and combat the original cheese strat that was present between like V45 and V49. I think was removed in V50. I just think the fact that they are allowed to shuffle while aiming at you actively and charging up a shot where they can go around a corner, I think that's crazy, and I've died to that a lot of times. They are a very difficult enemy, and that's just like one mechanic that I don't think they necessarily need to have.
Yeah. And reminder, this is an enemy that has a power level of 1.
And a max spawn of, I believe, 10.
Yep. And they could possibly infest a moon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god. I think that's really silly to happen, but I didn't want to touch that because that's really funny as well. Next up is the Snare Flea. So...
I hate that stupid bug.
that fucking bug that I hate. Alright.
Exactly.
Okay, so for a buff, I would just increase their attack speed so players would die quicker. They would die in 10 seconds rather than 20 seconds.
That's fair. It does take a really long time.
It does take a long time, but I think it makes sense that they take a long time. As such, it's not really a change that I'm personally happy with. So
I do like the change that I made, where basically I just wanted to make their like ground traversal speed faster, so they would reposition more quickly after they are found, and they would also be harder to hit with a shovel because they're just moving faster away from you.
Oh yeah, that would be annoying as fuck. Hello. Oh god, I don't know if I like that.
But their whole point is to be annoying anyways. So
Yeah.
they are definitely, in my opinion, by far the most annoying enemy in the game. I do not like them.
Okay, good to know. Alright, well, let's take the annoyance down and introduce a nerf. So I would make it so they cannot open doors. Simple change. And the reason why I say that is because those things are really, really low to the ground, and they do open the doors like after an extended period of time, but it doesn't look like they should be able to. I don't think they should be able to reach the fucking door handle and prop it open.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really make any sense. So this is a change that I've advocated for an extremely long time as well. One of these again, where I just think that their solo mechanics should just also be the way that they work in multiplayer, where they don't actually kill you. They just kind of waste 20 seconds of your time and bring you down to critical and then leave. I feel like that is more than sufficient a punishment for getting caught by them. I don't think you should die. I feel like the punishment is so severe for such a petty and annoying enemy that I think it just kind of comes off as being not fun after like the first 2 times you die to one of them.
Yeah. I can see it. I do think that the snare flea just works that way in multiplayer because like other players might have like weapons to get it off. But also, you could easily lure the snare flea over to, like, say, the main entrance and just have it die when you go outside.
Yeah, unfortunately, that relies on you not only being by a door, and also all of the, like, existing counterplay, aside from just, like, not getting caught in the first place, relies on you having a weapon on you, being able to find the weapon after it makes you drop everything in your inventory, which is also stupid. That's another thing you could nerf.
Yeah.
And then, or having people actually be around to hear you, like, especially since it muffles you.
It muffles
I feel like
your audio.
There's just like so much. There's so much that just encourages you to die to this petty early game 1 power level enemy that I think it's just a little overtuned, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Like any given like change that I just proposed in this like mini rant could be sufficient in making me fine with them. Just one of any of them. You don't need to do all of them or even 2 of them.
I see. Next one is a bit of a silly one and realistically should not be one that changes at all. The Spore Lizard. What I said is I would buff its damage output from 20 to 35. So it makes the Spore Lizard's hits to kill go from a 5-hit KO to a 3-hit KO. And because like realistically a player should not have this happen to them at all. And also there's like no good buff that I can think of aside from its damage output.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only one I can think of.
My proposed buff was, there were 2 of them, but the second one's more of a nuisance. Where the first one is just like, if you manage to bother them enough to make them release their Spore Cloud, I would say that it should do poison damage over time if you're standing in it. Or the other option was to just like make them stand their ground longer. They have that mechanic where they like really don't want to back off. Sometimes basically just make them a nuisance where they block your path and you kind of have to go somewhere else for a little bit. Those are the 2 options basically.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Now to nerf it. So in my opinion, of all entities to be invincible, having the Spore Lizard be invincible makes no sense to me. So
yeah, not really.
yeah, but also it kind of seems like a cop-out answer, so I guess that's option 1 for me. Another option is to lower its movement speed when it sees people, but otherwise I got nothing. I don't even like the second option that I had.
My nerf was basically exactly the same. Basically just make them killable, like give them like 4 HP or something.
Right, cool.
I don't know. It was a very, very like not specific.
Yeah, I think it makes 0 sense that this is like an unkillable entity. So yeah, that's that. Okay, the final, I think, indoor entity is the Thumper. Now, I have like simple huh? What's up?
I don't like Thumpers. They're very strong, and they're not the easiest to deal with, especially if you get just caught in an unfortunate situation. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. I do think that they're designed pretty alright, with like how they're like they make their presence known. You can hear their footsteps.
Yes, it is absolutely true.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna start with the nerf first because I think my buff is a little questionable. But I would just make its max speed equivalent to a sprinting player holding no items. So you can kind of run away from it if you're already running from it.
If you just drop literally everything. I think that's super fair. That's actually, I kind of wish that I came up with that change. I think that would be a great change.
Oh, okay, alright. Because like, yeah, if you're holding stuff, it's gonna catch up to you eventually. But
kind of like bees, where they travel just fast enough where if you are holding nothing, then you're good.
Yeah.
Except for when when you go up a hill, because that was introduced in V50, where variable speed depending on elevation, angle, and some spots on March I've gotten killed by bees even while holding nothing because I was going up a hill when I needed to just not be doing that. I've had that happen before.
Yeah, and I have funny you say it like that, because like I have an interesting buff for the circuit bees that I can get into later. But for now, let's hear your nerf for the Thumper.
So my Thumper nerf was reducing their you reduced their speed. I would say that I would reduce their acceleration. So they keep the same max speed, but they take longer to get to that speed.
Okay.
Specifically reducing their acceleration dramatically after being hit, so that they're way easier to kill if you actually have a weapon on you.
Yeah, those things are really scary if you say like you ran away from one and then you're hiding from it and it's like hunting you. I think there's a mechanic where like if they see you after they already like ran away from it, they will go to like their speed that they were at like originally chasing you or something like that. I don't remember what it is exactly, but it's something like that. Because I saw.
Yeah, no, they do have that sort of mechanic.
Okay, because I was gonna say I've seen clips where someone was hiding from a Thumper, and then they enter the room and the Thumper sees the player and they just go at like max speed like instantly. It's just like, oh god, I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, I've seen that happen before. I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as when they used to not even work correctly back in the day. That was insane.
Oh really? I actually didn't know
they
about
used
that.
to their acceleration used to basically like they would accelerate way too quickly and they wouldn't really like I'm not sure exactly what the problem was. Basically they were just way too fast. They used to be way too fast and it was not intended. And it was like it got to a certain point where it was kind of like impossible to deal with them.
I see. Okay. Alright, now to buff the Thumper. I want to hear your change first because I want to present mine last.
So this is another one of these that I would never buff in a million years. I would never buff a Thumper, but the slight buff that I was able to come up with was just increasing the angle of their line of sight. Because their line of sight is actually quite narrow.
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say.
if you know that it's narrow, then you can kind of exploit that. Where even if you're like directly to their side, they're probably not gonna see you unless you're super close.
Yeah.
Basically, my minimal buff was just to, like increase the angle of their line of sight, just so they can spot you a bit easier. But I would not go as far as to make basically any other change.
Okay. All right. I like that change more because what I said is to increase its health from 4 hit points to 6.
Oh god! Oh god! They're already so hard to kill.
Yeah, I think we've reached one where you like strongly disagree.
No, I definitely wouldn't. It's the thing is that like the only way that you can really get away with killing them without taking damage yourself is if you like find a really nice like large enough room where you can kind of circle them, because they have a really hard time hitting you if you're circling them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, usually, unless I'm just like being really good and precise mechanically at that given time, I'm usually going to get hit at least once. And the problem is that if you get hit twice, you're already fucked. Like, the moment you get hit twice,
you slow down.
You slow down and you're just going to die. You're probably just going to die. I have killed them after that before, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's very rough. Okay, so that does it with the indoor entities. Let's move on to... let's go touch grass and talk about the outdoor entities. So the first one that we have is the baboon hawk.
I don't really like these guys either, but I more just think that they're super annoying.
I agree, they're just really annoying, but we have to come up with a buff somewhere. So I'm gonna read my buff just verbatim with like what I just wrote. I said, using an item that can emit a sound like the hairdryer, clown horns, air horns, or cash registers will increase the threat level of a player by 1 for 0.8 seconds. I would decrease the threat level amount increase to 0.5. It's silly, but realistically, this is just a gimmick. So it's nothing absolutely substantial, but that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of any I couldn't really think of any change aside from just like slightly increasing their damage output, which I don't even really agree with, because I do think that they actually do quite a bit of damage, especially if you get caught in an unfortunate circumstance. Because if a lot of the times they'll just kind of walk through you and they'll hit you like 3 times on the way, and I think that's really stupid.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But I couldn't come up with any other way to change them without being like completely unhinged, terrible change.
I mean, realistically, you could still do that if you wanted to, but
yeah.
All right. Now to nerf it. So I'm gonna get mine out of the way. Why in the everlasting fuck is the max spawn output 15? Why?
That's a great question.
Why can that many baboon hawks spawn on a given map? Not that it will happen, it's just the fact that it can happen. I would reduce the max
if
spawn
you play on
out.
adamants, it will happen.
Well, yeah, obvious. Okay, yeah, adamants is an exception because like baboon hawks are ridiculously common on there. But even so, I would reduce the max spawn amount from 15 to 10.
Yeah, at least 10. Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair change.
Yeah. All right, what you got?
Okay, so for my nerf, I proposed reverting their power level back to 1, actually.
That's really funny.
So basically, it kind of accomplishes a similar goal to yours, whereas you would want only 10 to be able to spawn. And in my changing the power level back to 1, you probably would never get more than 10 spawning anyways.
Yeah.
So it basically accomplishes the same goal.
Yeah, I got you. And then like also like with like it kind of sounds like a trade-off to me, because I don't know, because it makes it so less entities are able to like spawn. Like for example, like the dogs. The more baboon hawks that spawn, I think the less that dogs are able to like spawn, because I think they have a power level of like 2. And like say you're on a map that has like 10 power level, if you have like 4 baboon hawks with the change that you have in mind, you'll have 4 baboon hawks, and then the maximum amount of dogs that can spawn is like 3. So I think this is one where I kind of disagree with it, but even so, it's not the absolute worst thing in the world.
My idea is that on most maps, other things would spawn before the baboon hawks, so their power level being higher would most of the time just translate to less of them rather than less of the other things. But specifically on adamants, this would not happen. It would be like the way that you described.
I see. Okay. Alright, yeah, that's the baboon hawk. Alright, let's talk about what I previously alluded to before, circuit bees. So obvious mechanic is just you get close to their beehive and stuff, and then they'll aggro onto a player if they step into the aggro range. I originally thought about increasing the detection range of when a player steps in the beehive's like range, but also I found it really strange, or at least like, I don't know, I don't think you're gonna like this change, but I thought it doesn't make sense that bees will not follow players down steep slopes. So for example, on VOW, let's say like you get a beehive and you go down the bridgeway to where the fire exit is. They're not going to follow you down that steep slope. Instead, they're going to try to pathfind to the player by going to the far end of the bridgeway and then down to follow that player. I think that makes 0 sense as to why they would do that. So I would just make it so they would follow players down steep slopes.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a change that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't say that that's bad at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I seem to have actually not finished writing the buff that I had for the beast.
It's really funny.
So I'm actually, because I had a thought after you said it, I'm gonna steal your detection range idea, where their detection range would be increased, obviously making it harder because you need to use more sprint to get around them to actually pick up the hive in the first place. But the reason why the thought I had that made this seem like a really good idea is that it would actually encourage the use of TZP more, because obviously you would want to have more sprint in order to actually get it done. Currently, TZP's basically only valid use is hauling double-handeds on Artifice, and it has no great use literally anywhere else in the game, in my opinion.
I see. Okay.
So I think adding more places for that to be used, especially since its price was actually adjusted, which, fun fact, that's a change that I suggested in my criticism video that was made very quickly after I made that video. I actually do genuinely think that he listened to like a good handful of the things I said in that video, because a lot of the changes that he made were like exactly the things that I said, not like close or adjacent, like exactly the things that I said. Like even the existence of the tool bag, which honestly was added super randomly and just happened to be added right after my video, I was like, there's no way he didn't want, he had to have at least seen the video. Whether or not he decided to take much input from it, I don't really know or care, but there's no way he didn't watch it. I do actually believe that he did. But that's a bit of a tangent. I really do think that your idea, just because of the kind of what's the word? Kind of the just like parallel that it has with TZP's functionality, I think that would be an interesting change to just make it a little bit harder to get away with the little sprint that you're normally given.
Fun change, but that being said, you stole my original idea, but
I
fuck with
stole
it. I fuck with it.
Because I totally forgot to finish writing. I wrote like half a sentence here, and I don't even remember where I was going with it, so I can't even get anything out of this.
It's fine. It's alright. Okay, now to nerf the circuit bees. I would just reduce their damage per second from 25 to 15, so it would take like 6 to 7 seconds to kill a player rather than like the 4, I think, that's originally like in the game or something.
Yeah, I literally just said like reduce their DPS, make them a bit less punishing. Like I do think that is a change that would be welcome in the game.
Okay, all right. I'm glad we kind of just came full circle to that. Okay, all right. Next up, the Earth Leviathan, the worm. This is one of the hardest things to make changes, both positive and negative for it. So I want to hear.
I feel like it's already like kind of gone through its era of needing changes and having changes be made, where it is almost in a perfect spot now. So I agree that it was really difficult to come up with anything. I decided that as a simple and pretty like inconsequential buff, really, to just have them start targeting you from a farther distance. So just like their targeting range, just increasing that by a little bit.
Okay, all right, that's a simple change. But it's a simple, but I like the change. I said make it so they will attempt to eat players on top of high surfaces, like the giant rocks in Assurance. Because the reason why is that, the Earth Leviathan is going to track players, but they're actually not going to attempt eating players when they're on giant rocks for whatever reason. So I would make it so they still try to eat players.
That's interesting. I didn't actually know that. If I had to guess, it's probably because a lot of the giant rocks might not be part of the actual like map geometry. I know there's a lot of the rocks just kind of generate randomly and are just placed.
But also, like, let's say you're a new player and like you just learn about the Assurance fire exit's existence. You're gonna go up that really steep ladder. The Earth Leviathan is no longer a threat to you.
Oh yeah, that rock is just like always there, and it just
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
do
and that's
Yeah,
that's
really
the
cool.
kind of thing that I was talking about. They will not try to eat players like on top of there. So I
Yeah,
would
I never
just
thought about that.
yeah. And this is something that I specifically like play tested, and yeah, it holds true, unfortunately. So
Interesting.
yeah, I would make it so they just do that. All right, now to nerf the worm. So I would make it so they cannot eat players inside the ship, and it makes intuitive sense to me, because as the ship is supposed to be a safe spot. The Earth Leviathan is not going to target players that are close or in the ship in the first place. But I have seen clips where, well, this is a very specific case. I saw a clip where the players were leaving and the Earth Leviathan was active, and there was a player like outside of, like, well, not necessarily like outside of the ship, but rather standing on the outskirts of the ship, and they still got eaten. And I think that makes
It's just because
little
like
sense.
if you interact with its hitbox literally at all while it is attacking, it will still kill you, and I do
Yeah.
think that is a little dumb, specifically for the. I think in any other instance that ends up being so rare that it's just hilarious.
Yeah,
But when
it
happens
is.
when you're
I
in
will say it is really funny that when
yeah,
that
but
happens.
if it happens in the ship though, that just feels terrible.
Yeah,
Like I wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah, and that sucks. That sucks. So that's the nerf that I would propose.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mine was very plain, where I was just like, to make them chase you a bit slower. I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of anything at all. Like I didn't know about that mechanic that you've just described, so I think that's a much better change. Because
Okay.
really, all I could come up with was just make them chase a bit slower, so that it's easier to get away from them. I don't know. I don't really even necessarily agree with that, just because I think that they are really well tuned. I think the way that they are.
Oh, I
now is
agree.
great.
I agree. Because this is another entity where it's like no change is necessary, but we have to come up with something for content. So, yeah. All right. Okay. Speaking of changing things for content, the eyeless dog.
It's another one that I don't think is in a terrible spot.
Yeah, but we got to come up with something. I want to hear what you have to say first, because I have something
Sure.
interesting. Okay.
So, these were both the buff and nerf that I came up with are super straightforward.
Okay.
Because I do think that it is very close to just being in a state where they're totally fine. I basically just made it so like a buff would be just increasing the range at which they hear. Once you get really good at the game and you realize how much you can kind of fuck with the dogs, you realize that their range of hearing is actually really small. So I feel like
Yeah.
just increasing that a little bit, or even substantially, I don't know, would be like not a bad change to make.
That's fair. That's fair. On paper, they might. I think they seem really hard to deal with, but if you deal with them like long enough, I think you understand like how they work and stuff like that. Increasing the hearing range would solve a lot of problems that the eyeless dog's cheese methods might have. Especially with the fact that like crouch sprinting was removed. That was not intentional. And thank God it was
Definitely
removed.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with it being removed, but it was really great to play while it existed.
Oh, I would imagine. I've never actually done it before, and I don't intend on going back to an older version just to do that, because it is very cheesy. But oh well, there's that. Okay, now my buff for the eyeless dog. I said, okay, so when a dog is in its kill animation, when it has a player in its mouth, it cannot hear noise. So I would make it so they can hear other players while they are killing a player. And
Okay.
honestly, I think this is a bug. I'm not 100% sure, but it is like a documented like detail that I think certain channels like Alter Ego like pointed out, because like yeah, they can't hear people when they're killing.
It might be just like a purposely implemented cooldown, honestly.
It could be, yeah. But also, I'm not that.
But I
I'm
feel
not
like-
sure like if
I feel like
like
it would
it.
be interesting if they were able to hear, but wouldn't act on it until after they're done with the animation. So like they're not gonna like stop eating something.
Oh no, yeah, that's not. I'm not saying like they stop
Okay.
eating. I'm saying like, because what I'm saying is that like they kill a player and then they go to where they last heard that noise, like that someone else
Okay.
made.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have their kill animation interrupted. that's
Yeah.
that's
No,
very
I think that's
cheesy.
good then. I think that's good then.
Yeah. Okay. Now for nerfing the eyeless dog, I really wasn't able to like come up with anything fun. So I just made I would just say make the hitbox of the eyeless dog's head a little bigger, but I'm obviously open to other changes.
Yeah, I was just for my nerf, I was just like decrease their health so that killing them with shotguns in late game is like actually a viable option once you've stockpiled a bunch of ammo. But like you still need to maybe expend like 2 or 3 shots
Oh yeah,
each.
yeah.
But currently I think it's like 5 or 6, so it's not really practical at all.
Yeah. I mean, not that it's practical to kill a dog in the first place.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I just think that like if you're in the late game, you should have it as an option if you really
Oh
want
yeah.
to.
I think presenting options to players is always a good thing. Okay, next is the Forest Keeper. Now, from what I remember, Minaxa, this was voted as the most imbalanced entity by your audience in the problem with Lethal Company and how to fix it in parentheses video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I had a lot to choose from. You could make it so like I think I don't know if this actually is like a mechanic like in the game, but you could make it so crouching even while moving takes longer for the Forest Keeper to detect a player.
So I think I don't remember. I think crouching actually does help even if you are moving. I think that's
Okay.
like the best thing that you can do is
Yeah.
crouch. But I don't think it matters much if you're like moving or not. I don't remember exactly how they work.
You can make it so they run slower, but ultimately I settled with just make it so Forest Keepers cannot grab players even when they are up against the walls of the company ship. I have seen clips where their hitboxes clip through the interior of the ship and they still grab players, and I think that's
I always
really silly.
I always stay away from the edges because dogs can actually do that too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I always just stay away from the edges of the ship, but that absolutely should not be a thing that can happen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So for the nerf, I ended up going with a nerf that I have strongly believed in for a while, and I do think that their ability to see you should be drastically decreased when you are crouched or entirely immobile, and if not drastically decreasing their ability to see you in that state, I would say that if you're not moving and you're crouched, I would say that it would be valid that they can't see you at all. It could be an enemy that has very poor vision and that
Yeah.
basically like kind of operates under the Jurassic Park T-Rex it can only see movement kind of thing. I
can
feel like
see
that
it.
would be so like instantly just making it a better enemy to play against, but
Yeah.
currently that is unfortunately
Not
the
how
case.
it works. Yeah. People don't like this entity, let's be real.
Nope.
But
Nope, not at
so
all.
I think just one change at the very least would be nice. Now that said, a buff that I have, and again, this is another entity that I don't think needs a buff, but I had to come up with something. So I think the detection meter should rise quicker if it sees a player holding an illuminated flashlight. It has to be turned on. And it can't just be like, oh, they're holding a flashlight. No, it has to be flashing forward, like, in front of the player. I think that would make it so it punishes people for trying to kind of make their way around in nighttime. But
I actually like that a lot. I wasn't really able to come up with anything I was satisfied with. In fact, I think I said, yeah, verbatim, I said, I don't know how you could possibly buff these without ruining the game. That's what I said.
Alright, so I think that translates to you got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing. I had
Alright,
nothing for that guy.
alright. I think this whole illuminated flashlight thing would be a reasonable, though aggravating change.
Yeah, I actually
to
like
go
that
with.
though.
Okay. Alright, next up, the Kidnapper Fox. So, elephant in the room. Yes, this entity is currently being reworked, but the scope that I had for this project was basically just address a buff and a nerf for how they, I guess, I don't know, currently work. So, yes, we are playing with how the Kidnapper Fox played before. So, I'm curious what you have to say first, minaxa.
So sorry, are we talking about a buff or a nerf right now?
Whichever one you want to go with first, I don't care.
Because I have an interesting statement for the buff, and I have 3 options for the nerf. So let me just go with the buff. I said, I don't know how you could possibly buff these without ruining the game, part 2. That's what I said.
I see. Okay.
I think when they were in the game, it was really bad. Like really bad.
Yeah, people did not like this entity as well, but it also might have been just because like it was a new entity. But even when it was new, I don't think it worked well.
No, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, I didn't want to like come to this call empty-handed, so I just had to come up with something. I just said the Kidnapper Fox can latch onto you if you're seated inside the company cruiser. It's mostly
that's not bad.
It kind of discourages people even more from buying a $400 waste of time, honestly.
It's not that bad anymore because people have like extensively researched like overcomplicated tech where if you just learn cruiser jumps, then it's actually a really fucking good item. It's just like super skill based.
Yeah, but I can imagine it takes time to learn how it works.
Yeah, no, you literally like the only way you can reasonably learn these because of how hard they are is to like get Imperium and go into a modded thing and just practice it over and over again until you learn it, it's not because they are not easy like tricks to pull off.
Oh yeah.
At least not on the fly.
All right. So that was our buffs. Now it's funny that you said you had 3 options, but I also had like several different options as well.
So, option 1 was reducing its health, so killing it is a little more viable, because currently, in versions where people still play, there is a cheese where you can get it to kind of stick its head through the wall of the ship, and then you just kill it with the shovel, like, standing on top of the terminal, basically. Not on top of the terminal, but, like, the table with the lever on it, or I think actually you stand on top of the cabinet and you put it in the corner. I don't remember exactly how it works because I've never done it myself. Option 2 was, again, remove the insta-kill, put you uncritical instead. Or option 3, which I thought would be pretty interesting, is make it afraid to approach you if you're holding a weapon.
Huh, okay. That kind of reminds me of, like, well, that third option sounds similar to, like, what is it, the Baboon Hawk?
Yeah, they kind of already do that.
Yeah. So I think that makes sense to do. Now, I had lots to choose from, and it's funny that you were talking about reducing its hit points, because I had something similar where it's like, yeah, you reduce its hit points to 3, because in my opinion, it does not look bulkier than a Thumper or Bracken, at least. So the fact that it has, what was it, like 7 hit points when the Thumper has 4, I think that made 0 sense to me, at least. So I would either reduce its hit points to 3, you can make it so you can close the door when you are caught in his tongue, but that was an intentional like mechanic, so I'm not sure if I really wanted to go with that. You could reduce the time it took for vein shrouds to grow, but I think the one I will ultimately settle with is make it so if he is hit by a weapon while he has his tongue out, he takes damage, because for some reason, if you hit him with a melee weapon when he has you caught in his tongue, he doesn't take damage. Why? Why does he not take damage from it? That's so silly. Oh my god. You can probably gather from all this is one of my least favorite entities in this game.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that it's being reworked because I did not like how it worked at all. I hope that whenever it's implemented again, it works better.
It needs to be completely different.
Yeah.
I want it needs to be like an actual full rework. I do not want that stupid fucker back in the game and it's even a remotely similar state ever again.
Yeah. I think it especially sucked that vein shrouds were able to grow under the ship, aka a place
my
where
God, it
you
was
sometimes
so
couldn't
bad.
go.
It wasn't even the fox on its own wasn't the problem. The fact that the fox was tied to the vein shroud and the vein shroud worked very poorly, that was the real issue, was the way that
Yeah.
the vein shroud worked.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Let's add a new nerf to like this. Like, make it so vein shrouds have like, so they can spawn around the map. Fine. Let's just make it so they don't spawn near the ship.
Did you know that on Titan they would literally spawn like in the wall, and there would be certain like points in the gameplay where if you played far enough, it would literally be impossible to have the fox not spawn on Titan.
You're
Literally
fucking
just not
kidding me.
literally
Oh
it just
my-
was not physically possible to avoid it, because even if you sprayed all of the vein shroud that you could see, you would not be able to get the ones that spawned like inside of the map, like geometry that you
That's-
just can't access.
That is poor game design. Nah.
Yeah, I don't know what Zeekers was thinking, bro. Like, I don't know why he doesn't do like longer time periods for the betas so that he can work out the issues. I don't really know what's going on in
Yeah,
that guy's head.
I see.
The repo devs have done the complete opposite, where the first major update that just came out a few days ago, I'm pretty sure was in beta for like 2 full fucking months.
That said, I still think Lethal Company is a great game. I fucking love this
Yeah,
game
no, it's
very
definitely
much.
it's great. It's good for a very different reason. It's not like you don't really play Repo and Lethal for the same purposes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we're gonna break the alphabetical theme. We're gonna skip straight to the tulip snakes first, because I want to
Okay.
end this on a high note. Tulip snakes. So the way I would buff them is similar to the circuit bees, where I would make it so they can climb steep ledges. Mostly comes from how they can fly or glide and all that. So, yeah, it's a simple change, but I think it makes sense.
I could not think of anything even remotely inventive for the tulip snake, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Increase their HP from 1 to 2. They're already really annoying. I would never buff them, but I couldn't think of anything. Just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
make them take 2 shovel hits, 2 stop signs to the dome, so that they fall off of your head.
Yeah.
They're not that bad, just because they fly away at like, I think it's 323 exactly. They all just disappear.
Yeah, something around like 320. Yeah. And that's something else I like said, where it's like there's something else in the buff where I just scrapped it. I said like possibly make it so they don't despawn at like 321 and make them despawn later. But I didn't like it. So, yeah. And then as for a nerf, this is the only one where I actually couldn't come up with a single thing. So I unfortunately came to this project empty-handed.
That's okay. What did I say for my nerf? I basically just had it be like, so they already kind of like, they'll leave on their own even if it doesn't go all the way to like 3-something PM.
Yeah.
I basically just said like, make them leave your head faster. Just like, because just have them spend less time, because it's already really annoying.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that's a good change. Yeah, if you presented that first, I probably would have stolen that. But
Okay, you would have been allowed, considering that.
yeah, you stole mine. But it's fine. All right. So the final entity, outdoors and in this entire video, the old bird. God, I hate this thing. Mostly because, like I said, I hate baby noises, and they can make baby noises, so it's like, oh god.
Very disturbing baby noises.
Yes, I hate those so much. Okay, so I said for a buff, while the old bird is flying in the air and the player is in their field of vision, they can see the player, bar if the player is crouching. Yeah, so if a player crouches, they cannot see the player at all. I would make it so crouching still makes you visible to the old bird, but it takes longer for them to detect you. Similarly to how
Yeah,
like
no, that's
crouching
fair.
makes it longer for a forest keeper to see a player.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a bad change. I think that would make a lot of sense, especially since you already are putting yourself in danger by being like out
Yeah.
and not having cover.
Yeah.
So it's just like kind of increasing that level of danger a little bit, making you a bit less safe outdoors. I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, you're already putting yourself in a scene where a plane could crash into you, so it's like
Pretty much,
make
yeah.
it so it doesn't happen, or rather it happens but not as often and it takes longer. Yeah, that's really the buff that I came up with. So I wonder what you got.
So, for the buff that I had, I was specifically, it's another one where I'm addressing a specific thing that people do. So there is a kind of grab animation that if you pass, I don't remember if it's the right arm or the left arm.
It's the right arm.
I feel like it's the right arm. If you pass over, they'll try to grab you.
Yeah.
But if they miss, they kind of just get stuck for like 3 seconds, and you just have time to run away. And it is surprisingly easy to abuse this animation, where they get stuck. So basically, my buff was addressing that to no longer be very easy. Basically, to reduce the effectiveness, decrease the time between activation and the hitbox actually resulting in a successful grab.
I see. Now, the nerf. It's really funny that you were talking about the grab animation because my nerf was kind of addressing it. And I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but old birds will actually attempt to... I think they will attempt to grab you regardless of which arm you are close to, but they will only grab you with the right arm, like specifically. I would make it so getting close to only the right arm provokes this grab attack method.
Okay.
So.
I'm not sure if that's already how it works.
Yeah,
or not,
I'm not sure if that's how that works already, but if it is, then I got nothing.
I do have a nerf, which is very simple, but I think would go a long way to kind of reducing their most obnoxious behavior. And it's literally just like have them lose interest faster after line of sight is lost. Because even after you hide, they keep like tweaking in your general vicinity for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard to actually like go any, like you're safe, but you can't go anywhere. Yeah. And I feel like that's just really annoying. And I think that just like should happen less.
Okay. Yeah. I actually like that change a lot. Okay. That's gonna do it for the video. Oh my god. Cannot believe we got through that entire thing. Oh, that was a buff and nerf for every single entity in Lethal Company. So, and I want to say before we actually do this outro, thank you, minaxa, for joining me on this idea.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious we had a few disagreements here and there, but ultimately I thought it was really fun to just come up with a change for every single entity and trap in Lethal Company. And hopefully, and maybe if you want satirically, for better or for worse, I'm curious to know if anyone in the comments has something they want to change. So yeah, leave a comment with your suggestions and just say which entity you would want to both buff and nerf. But I think that'll do it. So minaxa, do you have any final words?
No, not really.
All right. Minaxa's final words were no, not really. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
I shiba sekia! Okay, yep. Oh my! Whoa! God. What was that sound? Oh, it's a psychic trap. Oh my god. He's so scared. Okay, quick question before this recording ends. How do you feel about Super Mario Galaxy?
I like Super Mario Galaxy quite a bit.
Hell yeah. Oh my god, I love its music, especially.
Yeah, it is probably my favorite soundtrack, and also probably my favorite of the 3D Marios. Specifically Mario Galaxy 1.